Happy New Year, everyone. Sorry, I'll edit that out. Hey everyone, Happy New Year. So at the beginning of every year, or the end of every year, I kind of like doing two things. One, I like going through every single book that I read and ranking them by best to worst or worst to best. That's not this video though, that'll probably be a video that I do in a week or so. This video includes my reading goals for the year. So I have a collection of books that I own that I haven't read yet, or books that I haven't read in a really, really long time that I have no memory of. My goal this year is to read through every single one of these books before I end up buying myself any more books. In this video, I thought I would just go through the collection of books that I have that I want to read by the end of the year. I'm making a mess. So these are all of the books that I want to read throughout this year. We can start with this pile. So this pile includes all the books that I got for Christmas this year. Starting off first with George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood. So I've read every single book that George R.R. Martin has created in his, Fire and Ice series. This book is the one book that I haven't read though. So, my wife ended up buying me this for Christmas. So this is definitely a book I look forward to that I would like to read by the end of the year. Another book that my wife got me for Christmas is this, so a Brandon Sanderson book. I did end up reading Mistborn this past year, which I thought was pretty good. I didn't think it was necessarily amazing, but it was definitely a good book. So I do want to read more Brandon Sanderson books, so my wife got me this, Warbreaker, which is just a one-off book. It's not part of a series. And in addition to that, for Christmas, I got Lord of Chaos, A Crown of Swords, and The Path of Daggers. So this is the next 3 books in the Wheel of Time series, starting with, so this is book 6, book 7, and book 8 in the Wheel of Time series. The Wheel of Time series is a series that I've been reading for the past couple of years, and I definitely look forward to reading these next 3 in the very large series that it is, so looking forward to that. Okay, so moving on to the next pile of books. So these are books that I've owned for a very long time that I just haven't gotten around to reading. My goal is I want to make sure I get through this pile of books and I read them. Starting off, we have an Oscar Wilde book, The Pictures of Dorian Gray. This is, of course, a classic. I'm sure you've heard of it. So I definitely want to read this book because I haven't read it before. Next, we have Crime and Punishment. Again, another classic. Haven't read this book, at least not all the way through. I know I tried reading it a very, very long time ago and had some difficulty reading it, so I want to give it another go and see if I can get through it because, again, another classic, want to check it out. Then we have God Emperor of Dune. This is the 4th book in the Dune series. I have read the first 3 Dune books. I absolutely loved them. And then we have The Name of the Wind. This book I've probably owned for like 5 years at least and just haven't gotten around to reading it in all that time. So I really do want to end up reading this book. I've heard really great things about it, that it's absolutely amazing. I know it is part of a series and that this is the first book in this series, but I do want to give this book a try and, maybe if I like it quite a bit, I would read the second book. And then maybe, who knows, by the time I finish that, maybe the 3rd and final book will be out. Then we have some Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities. Again, this is a classic book that I haven't read before. I've owned this book for probably a couple years at least, so definitely a book I want to read by the end of the year. Then we have another Charles Dickens book. This is Oliver Twist. Of course, another classic. I'm sure you've heard of it. Want to read this by the end of the year as well because I've heard great things about both of these Charles Dickens books. And then this book, a little bit different. So The Diary of a Young Girl, Anne Frank. So this book I know is going to be probably a very depressing book, but it is a book that I've never read before and I've always been really interested in reading it to see what it's like. So I do want to end up reading this by the end of the year. And then finally, we have The Story of King Arthur and His Knights. So this, of course, you can tell by the title, is an Arthurian book. I've had this book for a very, very long time. I think it was actually a book I got for free a couple years ago. And honestly, I don't know anything about this book other than the fact that it's Arthurian legend, but it has been on my bookshelf for a very long time, so I do want to give this book a read as well. Okay, so that is that pile of books, and now we have the final pile of books, which is a little bit different. So in the past year, 2022, I ended up getting a couple free books that I thought would be pretty interesting, although I'm not sure I do want to end up reading them. So the first one I have is Earthsea, A Wizard of the Earthsea. Yeah. Uh, of course, this is part of the Earthsea series. I haven't read any of these books. I have heard of them, and I've heard that they're pretty good, so I'll probably end up reading this book. It isn't too long, so it should be a pretty quick and easy read. But who knows, maybe I'll enjoy it quite a lot, and then maybe I'll end up reading the series. Next book that I got for free is this, Merlin Book 1, The Lost Years. This is another book I've never heard of. Of course, again, it's Arthurian legend. As you can tell, it's probably going to be about Merlin. But, you know, if I have time at the end of the year, maybe I'll read this book as well. And then the final free book that I picked up in this past year is this, Eddings, The Elder Gods by David and Lee. This is also a book that I have absolutely no idea what it is, but it does say it's book 1 of the Dreamers series. I don't know if I'm going to end up reading this book. This might be a book with these other 3 books that I end up giving away for free. If I do have time by the end of the year, though, I might give this book a read and see if it's any good. We'll see. Okay, and then the final 4 books that we have are going to be a little bit different because these are all astronomy-related books. I used to be really into astronomy, especially reading a lot of astronomy-related books like Carl Sagan and Stephen Hawking. This is a Carl Sagan book that I haven't read yet, though. It's Pale Blue Dot, so by the end of the year, I do definitely want to give this book a read because I have really enjoyed everything that Carl Sagan has written. And then the next astronomy-related book we have is this. This is a pretty old book, but it is The Dragons of Eden by Carl Sagan. Again, definitely another book that I want to read by the end of the year. Hopefully it's really good as well. And then we have a couple of Stephen Hawking-related books. So this is The Universe in a Nutshell. Then we also have Stephen Hawking, The Grand Design, and Stephen Hawking's most popular book, A Brief History of Time. So I'm going to give all 3 of these books a read. I've only read a single book by Stephen Hawking, but what I did read was absolutely fantastic, so I'm hoping that I'll enjoy these books as well. These books are definitely a little bit different from my other collection of books, which is mainly fantasy and then some classics, but I very much enjoy reading astronomy-related books because I mean, astronomy is just fascinating, and Carl Sagan and Stephen Hawking are 2 of like the greatest writers in astronomy, in my opinion. Sorry, quick cut in. I also forgot that I'm reading this book, Gulliver's Travels. I'm about halfway through this book, so my goal is to finish reading this book really, really early in 2023. So that'll bring my total number of books that I'm planning on reading next year to be over 20 books, actually 21 with this book. So that's kind of neat, reading over 20 books in a year. So yeah, that is my collection of books that I want to read by the end of the year. That is my reading goal. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to read all of these books, so I'm not sure I'm going to end up reading these 3 books that I got for free. But if I do have time, I'll definitely give them a read since I believe these 3 books are going to be probably the easiest reads out of all of these. If you have any recommendations for other books that I should check out by the end of the year, let me know. Again, my goal is to read all of these books before I end up buying myself any more books. So I might not get around to it, but you know, if you have any recommendations for me, please let me know in the comments below. Or if you have any opinion on any of these books, let me know as well. If you think some of these books are absolutely fantastic, books that I should start reading right away, or books that I should, you know, maybe wait on for the end of the year. Let me know. Thanks for watching.